Okay, sorry, just had to get that out of my system. Okay, so this is a little bit of an intro that I'm recording fresh as I'm editing the video because I recorded this footage over 2 months ago. So the time frame in which I refer to things is going to sound pretty skewed. And as I'm sitting here editing this, it's September 18th, and I just have to acknowledge that it was kind of all or nothing this point. If I didn't go ahead and edit and release this like soon, I was never going to put it out. I thought about combining it with my quarter 3 wrap up video when I get around to making that one in a couple weeks. But then I just realized, that was putting it off for like a kind of arbitrary reason. And if I want to hold myself more accountable to making content for this channel, I have to at least stay on top of my scheduled, the kinds of consistent content that other channels are able to do and stay on top of. So I apologize, for how late this is coming out. I'm apologizing to myself as much as I am to all of you. And I hope you can stay patient with me. I do really want to try and make other kinds of content, standalone book review videos, things about webtoons and manhwas and manga and things like that. And there's just a lot going on in my life that's very unstructured right now. So it's hard to build structure for my content creation at the present time. And I've been hoping for months that this would change, and it just hasn't so far. So unfortunately, the channel is suffering as a result of that too. And yeah, I feel really bad, and I've been kind of beating myself up for it lately with just like how late everything is and how long it takes me to go from filming to editing to upload. Yeah, I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of an update on where I'm at and why this video took so long to come out. I guess I didn't go into too much detail, but yeah, really just trying to get a handle on things in my real life. And the channel has always been kind of intended as like a side project, hobby thing. I'm not really pushing for this to be like a full-time or a monetized endeavor at present. So I guess what I'm saying is it may continue this way for a little while with inconsistent uploads and things like that. I hope one day to better structure it. Yeah, I think that's all I've got. Anyway, enjoy my very, very late quarter 2 review of everything I read. Hello everybody, Leah Harlann here, giving you my quarter 2 reading wrap up. So that would be everything I read in the months of April, May, and June. Right. Quarter 2, April, May, June. I gotta tell you guys, we hit a real slump in that time period, and I'm still in a way trying to pull myself out of it, but I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. April is the magical readathon, spring equinox. I have participated in it for a couple years now. Was last year? Maybe last year was the first time I did it. But this year, April was just like really rough because I was finishing grad school. It was my last semester. The senioritis was hitting super badly. Seems like no matter how old you are or how many times you've graduated or how many degrees you have, senioritis will always come for you in that final stretch. So April was pretty rough. So what did I read in April? Yeah, so April, we started off strong with Dark Star Burning, Ash Falls White. This was the conclusion to the Song of Silver, Flame Like Night, duology. Song of the Last Kingdom, I think is what the duology is called as a set. And I really enjoyed the first one. I unfortunately took a really long time to get around to reading it though, so even though I loved it, I missed the window to pre-order the sequel special edition from Illumicrate. And I'm super bummed about that. So if anybody knows where I can get my hands on one for less than an arm and a leg and my firstborn child, please let me know. I have been trying to hunt on like secondhand websites, eBay and stuff for months with no success. I did not get an email from being on the wait list for the leftover stock. Like she's, it's cooked. If they have a leftover stock sale later where they manage to have a few copies left, I will obviously do my best, but they were a hot commodity earlier this year. Should I even talk about it? Don't people normally tell you what these books are about when they talk about them in reading wrap-ups? This is so unscripted. Can you tell this is so unscripted? Okay, so it's a sequel. So trying to give you a summary synopsis of that one would be mostly spoilers. So I'll just tell you a little bit about the first one. Song of Silver Flame Like Night is about a young woman named Lan who lives in like a fantasy version of China that was colonized by the Atlanteans. And in it, her people had a form of magic that was sort of like about balance with energies and the elements in the world around them. But the colonizers kind of honed in on one element in particular, that being metal, and kind of like overwhelmed all of the magic practitioners of her kingdom. And that was kind of how they were able to successfully conquer them. And Lan lost her mother in that event, in the conquering of their kingdom. So she's kind of just been laying low, like trying to scrape by. She has like a strange mark on her arm, and one day a practitioner who is named Zen, like they kind of cross paths, and there's like, like he notices something strange about her, and turns out like she has magic as well. She never knew it, and so he wants to help her. She wants to help figure this out. She wants to know what the mark on her arm means, but they're also being hunted down by soldiers from the Atlanteans army, and it kind of kicks off like this like overarching journey. Is that even like a good explanation? There's like, it's a little bit YA. It's got the magic, got a little bit of like wuxia, Chinese storytelling tropes. It's got themes around colonization, and it has like a nice little romance, a little bit of the subplot. It's not like a romantasy, just has the romantic subplot. So I read the sequel, which was the conclusion to that duology. Don't even know how to talk about that one, but I loved it quite a bit. It was super solid. Honestly, just a super solid duology. If you like Asian fantasies, Chinese inspired fantasies, definitely want to give that one a go. Next on the list, I read Blood Debts by Terry J. Benton Walker, and I actually need to get to the sequel, which released earlier this year. But I enjoyed that one quite a bit. It's kind of like a YA paranormal. It takes place in like a kind of modern day New Orleans. There are witch families. 30 years ago, a young woman was murdered, a family was lynched, and New Orleans saw the greatest magical massacre in its history. In the days that followed, a throne was stolen from a queen. And so this book takes place in the POV of Clement and Christina Trudeau, who are twin teenagers who the throne used to belong to their family. They used to be the main leading family of all the magic users in New Orleans. But then after this tragedy that happened 30 years ago, their family was implicated, and the throne was passed over to another family. And her family became kind of like, not like quite outcasts, but they like have this stain on their reputation. And their mother has been sick recently, And they have like other aunts and stuff, but their like larger family kind of has broken apart and drifted away from each other. Their father passed away about a year ago. And so like they've kind of just had all these fractures that have made things very difficult. And their mother is sick and dying, but they find out at the very beginning of the book, so it's not a spoiler, that she wasn't sick, she was actually cursed. And so now they need to figure out like who out of all these other magical families in New Orleans was trying to kill their mother, and are they going to be targeted as well? And so and it's really interesting, the two POVs. We've got on one side Christina, who used to be like kind of a child prodigy. She was super talented, magic came to her effortlessly, but she has, at the time that we start this novel, she has gone like no magic. Like she's quit it. She wants nothing to do with it anymore. And nobody knows why. On the other hand, we have Clement, her twin brother, who loves magic, was never really quite as good at it as his sister, and he can't really understand why she refuses to want to do anything with magic anymore. And he's been kind of relying on it more and more ever since their father passed away, and he has been struggling with a lot of like emotions and like turmoil ever since, because like he was really close to his father. They are butting heads and like kind of missing each other on the communication a lot, but we see them kind of trying to repair their relationship, because they have to band together to figure out who was trying to curse their mother and might be coming after them and the rest of their family, and figure out like what's going on, because it might all tie back to this event from 30 years ago that implicated their family. And I enjoyed it quite a lot. I don't normally do a lot of like contemporary fantasy or paranormal stuff, but this one was pretty good. A lot of like the drama in between all the different families and stuff was really interesting. Kind of leaned, it's like in that same vein of like the court intrigue things that I kind of like in other higher fantasy or historical fantasy settings. And the sequel's already out, so I can dive right into that one whenever I'm ready. And I hope I'm ready soon. I don't want to forget about that one. Next, in April, I read The Brides of High Hill by Nevo. That is the next entry in the Singing Hills cycle, which is, as many people might know by now, one of my favorite series currently that I've been reading. Every novella is a cute little standalone in like a historical fantasy type setting that follows the cleric Chi as they travel around and collect stories for the Singing Hills monastery that they are a member of. And they have like this intelligent bird called a nation that they travel with all the time, that's sometimes there and sometimes not in the novellas. And the bird's name is Almost Brilliant. And they have such a great dynamic, but also like the type of story each entry isn't always going to be the same. And this one definitely took like a little bit of a different direction tonally, genre wise, than what I was used to with Nevo. And it wasn't my favorite. I think for the first time I'd been on this sort of like every book was better than the last in the Singing Hills had been like the trend for me. But for the first time, I did not find this one to be my new favorite. But that by no means by no means did I think it was bad. Heavens, no. It's like a little bit more of like a mystery, had almost like horror vibes going for it. It is about, Chi in this one accompanies a beautiful young bride to her wedding to an aging lord at an estate that's like kind of in a weird place, and it doesn't seem to be, it seems like an estate and a family that used to be very great, but now they're not so well off. And her parents are, oh, there's my cat. Her parents are like, it kind of seems like they're practically selling her off. So Chi is kind of like just like tagging along, but when they get into the estate and like the wedding preparations and celebration is happening, all these like mysterious things
start happening, and all these like, can you hear my cat? Can you hear her? She's like rubbing her face up against the sound box. But yeah, all these kind of mysterious things start happening. It's like a bit of a mystery, a little more so than some of the other entries. And yeah, it was still good, just not my favorite. Solid like 4 stars though. Again, another novella I read in April was A Magical Girl Retires. And this one, I talked about it, mentioned it in my mid-year freakout tag, along with, a couple other ones. This is a Korean novella that was translated into English by Anton Her. The original author is Park So-yeon. And there are illustrations in this book in black and white that were done by Kim San-ho. And this novella is very much a love letter to, I would say, millennials who liked magical girls growing up, and also like millennials who struggled in adulthood with a lot of things, finances, career, the economy, the world, all of the things that have been happening in the world ever since we were too young to do anything about, but then have continued to be problems as we reach adulthood and just try to get by day to day. And I think it was very well done. It wasn't too heavy. It really didn't linger too long on a lot of that stuff. It didn't really like hammer it in. It was good. It was relatable. It was good. It was unexpected. It's called A Magical Girl Retires. And the premise is a 29-year-old woman in South Korea, in Seoul, who is in a pretty bad way financially and in a lot of other ways, and so tries to, like, I don't know if my motion capture is doing that correctly. She tries to herself at the beginning of the novella, but she is interrupted. She is saved by another adult woman who says she's a magical girl and that our main character has been chosen to join the League of Magical Girls. And this isn't like the old magical girl shows we've watched where being a magical girl is like a big secret and your friends and family are at risk so you can't tell anybody. No, magical girls is it's like a career. It's like a career, like any other job that you can do. You just have to be picked for it. And so our main character is picked for it, but she's apparently some big super uber special magical girl, or she will be, and she's meant to save the world. And so yeah, it's a novella, so it honestly isn't that long, and it's just really interesting, not only just the concept of magical girls, how it's utilized and played with in this contemporary setting, and with it being a lot of adults who are magical girls, but the themes that it chooses to tackle as well are I just really enjoyed them. I really liked it a lot. I plan to pick up a physical copy for my home library, which still has no shelves. So it's just stacks of books. But I am on a book buying pause outside of my subscription boxes, so it'll have to wait. But it's on the list. It's on the wish list. I don't know if you can hear my cat purring, but she's sitting on my desk right now, and I have to pet her to keep her complacent. Next is a graphic novel that I read. We're moving into May. The graphic novel is The Marble Queen by Anna Knopp and Gabrielle Kari. Yeah, so The Marble Queen, that one I kind of just picked it up on a whim. It's a graphic novel. I saw that it was available from a library, so I picked it up, read it in a day, threw it back. I gave it 3 stars. It was fine. It was okay. It had some interesting concepts, but it just really rushed through, and it felt like it didn't really fully develop some things. It felt like it needed a couple more at least one more volume, maybe 2, to really breathe with its storyline and its characters. As it stands, like I said, it was fine. Nothing horrible or offensive about it. It's a queer fantasy romance with a princess, Amelia, whose kingdom is like super declining. Like they're in pretty dire straits. Their trade routes have been ravaged by pirates for months and months. And so really the only way out they can see for the leaders can see is to marry her off to another kingdom to form an alliance and, you know, like have their allies like help take care, like deal with the pirates because they've failed. You know, they've tried multiple times and they have failed using what resources they have, and they, you know, there's no hope for them to be able to take them on themselves anymore. She ends up, through a little bit of a miscommunication, betrothed to a rather powerful country's queen, which is Queen Salira. Yeah, I don't really know much to say about it because it's been a while. It's like already been a couple months and I've forgotten a lot of the plot. But I do remember just being like, okay, and feeling like it was quite rushed. But it is a quick read since it's a graphic novel. Next was The Merciless Ones by Namina Forna. This was book 2 in the Deathless trilogy. The first one being The Gilded Ones, which I read last year, and I remember like being kind of interested in it, but then it just really took me a long time to get around to reading the second one, The Merciless Ones. And the third book, I can't remember if it's like The Eternal Ones or something, came out earlier this year, so that kind of is what spurred me to like put it higher up on the TBR, and I found time to listen to the audiobook. That was one thing that it was one of the rare works where, with the first one as well, where the audiobook was well done and very helpful, because I was having trouble thinking about how to pronounce all the names and kind of like envisioning the different, excuse you, and having, you know, it was, and I was also just kind of struggling to get through the book itself. So having the audiobook was quite helpful. And I was driving around a lot in May, and so, like, you know, a couple road trips, I was able to get through the audiobook pretty well. But I'm not gonna lie, I was zoning out sometimes, and it felt like I wasn't even missing much. Now you've heard all that commentary and you're like, what is this series even about? It's about a 16-year-old girl named Decca who lives in a world where when girls turn 16, they are bled in like a public ritual, like they have a cut or something on their arm, and if their blood runs gold, they're treated as like monsters. Really, they're like kicked out of their village, they're killed usually, except Decca didn't die and was saved by a mysterious woman who told her that she was recruiting girls like her all across the country to make an army that were going to fight these actual monsters that are out there, and that if they fulfilled their duty and eradicated the monsters, you know, did their time and their service, then they would be like forgiven for their filthy blood, their like monstrous nature. They're called Alaki, and of course, in book 1, she meets all of these other girls. She meets all these other girls who are like her, and they kind of learn, they like train in this army and learn how to use their like supernatural nature to, and like, you know, things. But Decca is like, of course, super special. That's why she's the protagonist. And, you know, end of the first book, some stuff comes to light in the way that they do in these YA fantasies. And so in the second book is, you know, a lot of like restructuring and like, you know, like everything she knew was a lie, or, you know, that kind of revelation. And so she's like diving into this new worldview and role that she gets, and it's just, but yeah, it just really wasn't, it really wasn't vibing with me. I liked the first one pretty well, but this second one, it had a bit of second book, it suffered a little bit from second book slump, but it also was just like a little confusing sometimes, where I'm like, what are we doing here? What are we getting at? You know, it was a little bit YA, is a little bit too YA for me sometimes, you know, like the way the characters acted, the way they talked, is a little, you know, a little too much of the like, girl, what are you doing? being a little annoyed with her. She's only like 17, I think. So I was like, I tried not to hold it against her. But at the same time, like, I still read and enjoy other YA books where I don't find the protagonists as annoying. So it's like, I don't know what was happening here, but I really wasn't vibing with it. And like some of the messaging, oh my gosh, some of the messaging, like the feminism, and like the feminine rage stuff that they were doing, especially later, like in the latter half of the book, was just so heavy-handed. It was kind of annoying to listen to. Like and I was interested in some of the overarching themes that they were playing with and some of the plot twists that they introduced later on. So I might still go ahead and read the third book just to see how it wraps up, where they decide to go with it. But I just wasn't super invested in what was happening in the second book. No, honey, I need you to... Yeah, I know it's a long jump. Let me help you. Yeah. She's just... I could tell she was trying not to be in the way, but also struggling. I'm not sure if I'll make it through the third one, but I am interested to a certain extent at some of these overarching themes and world building choices and how they will be resolved. Next book that I read, another one that came up in my mid-year freakout tag, A Sorceress Comes to Call by T. Kingfisher. I got the ARC for this one, and it is a dual POV, like another dark fairy tale retelling type book. So if you liked Nettle and Bone from T. Kingfisher, like I did, you are going to like this one as well. It's a retelling of The Goose Girl from the Brothers Grimm. I don't actually know the original Goose Girl tale. I don't know it. I don't remember it. I don't know anything about it. So I went in pretty blind to this one. But it's a dual POV featuring one of my favorite characters of the year, Hester, and Cordelia. Cordelia could be considered more of like the main character because of like she's kind of more of a central node in relation to all the characters and events that are happening. But Hester is very much like an active character and player. I love both of them. Hester, I love a little bit more. A Sorceress Comes to Call is about Cordelia and her mother. Her mother can use magic. And for Cordelia, this is quite normal, but she was raised very isolated from everyone else. Her mother didn't like her. Okay, easy explanation. Her mom is basically like Mother Gothel from Tangled, from Rapunzel. Raised her up in isolation, didn't want her making friends anywhere else, told her like, the outside world was like super dangerous, and also has like this very clearly like toxic relationship, like mother-daughter relationship. But for Cordelia, it's all she's ever known. So she doesn't really question it, or like she knows on like some level that it's not okay, but she also doesn't know what to do about it. She, like, her only friend, if you can call it that, I mean, hey, Rapunzel had Pascal, her little chameleon. Cordelia has Falada, her mom's horse. She goes out like horseback riding. She's allowed to go, but she can only go so far from home. Anyway, one day, her mom is like, we've got to go. I need to find like a new sugar daddy, I gotta find a new guy, somebody new to take care of us. And so she picks this like wealthy older man known as the Squire, and she's kind of planning to, like lure him in, seduce him, and get married to him. And the Squire's sister is Hester, and Hester gets bad vibes right away. I kind of add in a few other like very eclectic and colorful side characters that Hester calls in to like help her. I think she uses the words run interference, and it's a very fun story, but obviously it's T. Kingfisher, so do not forget that darker elements are an ongoing presence in this story, especially with the relationship between Cordelia and her mom. So I thoroughly enjoyed it, though. It's a little longer. It was this is, I think, more short novel territory rather than like the novellas that T. Kingfisher has been writing more of lately. I mean, she definitely writes longer books. I just haven't gotten around to reading a lot of those yet. But I enjoyed it. It was a great read. The pacing is still great as always. Like T. Kingfisher, you know, some authors like can't write longer, like if their home is usually in like shorter content, short stories, novellas, things like that, then they struggle to write longer novels. T. Kingfisher does not have that problem. So I want to collect all of T. Kingfisher's books eventually. That was a really good one though. Highly recommend. 5 stars, easy peasy. Another novella that I read in May is another digital arc that I had my hands on called The Fireborn Blade. That one I had like, it was like a false start. Like I tried to read the first couple pages, put it down, didn't really feel any need to get back to it. But then I did eventually get back to it closer to when it was being released. It officially released at the end of May. And so I wanted to finish it to give my feedback on NetGalley before it came out. And I ended up reading it pretty quickly after that. I remember like part of the reason I think I had trouble with the pacing at the beginning was because we were getting these sort of like informational asides. I don't really know how to put it. They were supposed to be like historical accounts of, you know, facing dragons or something. And you know me, I love my dragon books. But it was like kind of jumping back and forth between like our main character and then these like informational asides. And I wasn't really sure how I was feeling. But once I got going and they spread those out a little more, I found it much better. And it flowed a lot better and I enjoyed it a lot. So The Fireborn Blade is a novella by Charlotte Bond. It's about a woman, a female knight named Madela, who is kind of in a bad way. She has become dishonored for something that happened in the past. And the opportunity she is given to redeem herself is to retrieve the Fireborn Blade from the legendary ancient dragon known as the White Lady. And so we kind of like jump in right away with her like entering the dragon's lair. And so while we are reading about Madela's journey through this dragon's lair, we're getting some like good world building with these information, like historical accounts of other knights who have faced other dragons. And so it's not just that, and I liked the way that was done. We also get some flashbacks of like how Madela ended up in this situation. And honestly, I'm not gonna lie, like I didn't really see the ending coming in this novella, even though like I will say, like Bond managed to throw in some good twists and turns in its, you know, I think 168 pages. That's good. And there's a sequel, which I also got the arc for. The sequel's actually coming out later this year. I think it's scheduled, it's slated for like late October. So, you know, you've got an easy 1-2 novella completion possibly happening here. I don't know if it's a duology or if there's going to be more, but honestly, like good on her and good on the publisher for getting these out ready to go out so quickly, because I'm interested. And I do have my arc, so hopefully I'll be able to talk about that one in the next reading wrap up. Another book that came up in my mid-year freakout tag. I mean, I had like, I will say, like quarter 2 did have some pretty good ones, some good standouts. The God and the Gumiho by Sophie Kim. I thoroughly enjoyed this one. I got an arc for it and I wanted to read it before my Fairy Loot copy was going to come in, because I wanted to know whether or not I was gonna like sell it or skip the box entirely. But I didn't, and I'm really glad that I didn't skip it. It's such a good book. If you like K-dramas, you definitely want to give this one a shot. I like K-dramas, but I haven't watched any in a while. I should get back to a couple that I started while I was reading this book, actually. But The God and the Gumiho, it is like a little more of a romantasy, but it's got Korean. It's like an urban fantasy with Korean mythology woven in. Really good parallel. I did like a fan cast on TikTok, and honestly, I mentioned it there, but I could totally believe that this was like fan fiction set in the same world, or almost the same world, as Goblin, the Great and Lonely God, or just Goblin, you know, depending on which place you watched it. This, if you like Goblin, you definitely need to give this one a read. It is like so good. The dynamics are there. The like world building and the setting is there. It's not exactly the same, but it's just so good. The God and the Gumiho is about our female protagonist, Kim Honey, who is a very infamous nine-tailed fox, or Gumiho, known as the Scarlet Fox. And she's been laying low for quite a while now, like decades. And then on the other hand, we have Sokga, the Fallen. And he is called that because he was a trickster god, brother of the heavenly king, like who oversaw like all the gods and worlds. But he tried to do a little coup, and it didn't work out. So he got kicked out of the heavenly realm. So the two of them end up crossing paths when a really powerful demon escapes and starts, you know, going on a little bit of a murder spree in the human realm where they both are currently. Also, the heavenly ruler is offering like a deal to Sokka where he says like, brother, my guy, if you catch this one specifically terrible supernatural being and also the Scarlet Fox, I'll let you come back early. You can get your spot back early. You know, exile over. And Honey is like, oh, no way am I gonna get caught. And the smartest thing to do, you know, they say keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer. So she's like, I will, you know, get myself hooked up, helping him with this case, and just make sure he never figures out it's me. Their dynamic is just excellent. Hani and Sokka are just, it's that wonderful K-drama romance dynamic with the sassy tit for tat back and forth. And but it's got like the supernatural stuff happening. It's got like your highs and your lows with the K-drama pacing. All it's missing is the in-your-face product placements and sponsorships. That's all it's missing is like an exposition dump in a subway. That's the only thing missing from this book. It is a standalone as well, so no need to commit to a full series. Oh wait, is it? Oh no, wait, Goodreads says Fate's Thread #1. Oh no, there's a sequel! When did that get put on Goodreads? Okay, so it's not a standalone. I lied. Sorry. Gonna have to get my hands on that arc. Okay. It was still an excellent book. You could treat it as a standalone. Like, I'm just saying, you could treat it as a standalone. It's got that K-drama ending where it's like, you could consider this wrapped up. But apparently there's going to be a sequel. Yay! I'm excited. I loved Sophie Kim's writing for this one. So I'm happy for more. Happy for more. Yeah, we're already at the last book of the wrap-up, which is Foundryside by Robert Jackson Bennett. First book of the Founders trilogy. Yeah, it's another backlist. It's from 2018. Foundryside, I've heard pretty great things about. And, you know, a lot of people have mentioned, like, there's a heist. So I'm like, say less. Foundryside is about a woman named Sansia who is a thief who's been living in, like, these slums. And she is, of course, sent on a job where she doesn't realize that she's getting herself wrapped up in something way bigger than just a score. The city of Tavan is built basically like on the bones of a fallen civilization, and whatever scraps of magic the previous civilization was using, which is called scriving. And she finds this artifact that could like change everything they know about scriving because they don't know a lot about it. Sansia is actually the product of some scribing experimentation as well. People want people dead. People are doing crazy experiments with scribing. And honestly, the ending to this first book was like so explosive and yet opened this door like for so much more to happen that I'm very intrigued at where it's going to go from here. I kind of had a slump, especially in June. The God and the Gumiho and Foundryside were the only two things I finished in June, and that was rough. I was feeling, I think, a lot of burnout after finishing school, and I've been struggling ever since to like get a new job. So it's been hard to like read and enjoy reading when I have like, you know, this whole thing hanging over my head. So, but yeah, if you like fantasy heists, Foundryside, and you haven't already read Foundryside, like you definitely want to read Foundryside. It's a great one. But that is, like I just mentioned, everything that I read in Q2 of 2024. If you have also read any of these, let me know in the comments what you thought. If you are interested in reading any of these, let me know. A decent number of these were advanced reader copies from NetGalley, so thank you again to NetGalley. But I think all of them have released. And if you want to say hi, but you don't know what to put in the comments, you can give me a little wave. Give me a little fox. Yeah, give me a little like fox for the God and the Gumiho, because that one was truly excellent. And maybe go check out my TikTok account if you want to go see me talk about my fan cast for it. It is spoiler free. Until next time, I hope you all read something wonderful and interesting, and I hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.